Hey friends, and welcome back to another Borderlands 4 video. Today I am going to show you the best cache gun build. It is truly crazy. I first started putting together this build because I wanted to use gun Ordnance, and I still think that he has a really cool Ordnance build and has potential there, but I had to put that on the back burner. However, this build can still use Ordnance really well, and it still does a lot of damage, which I'm going to show you in these opening clips. But after putting together this build, I quickly realized that the skill in the red tree, Gloam to Glow, is so powerful that we really just had to full send it into that skill. This cache build is so easy to play and deals so much damage, and you never have to reload that you might actually get bored of running it. But if you guys know me, you know that I love builds that are easy to put together and they perform without jumping through crazy hoops or getting specific drops. I've also learned a lot from Rator, another Borderlands content creator that I've covered on the channel, who is in the weeds testing cache damage formulas, so that has definitely influenced some of my skill tree decisions that you'll see later on. So huge thanks to him for doing the heavy lifting there. Alright, so for this cache gun build, we're using the class mod Windrider. Firstly, because it rolls with points into Gloam to Glow, Dusty Trail, and Dealer's Bluff, which are all important here. But secondly, because it gives us great benefits when gaining and losing fortune. So it says whenever Cache kills an enemy with a critical hit from a gun, he doubles his fortune stacks. Otherwise, killing an enemy with a gun drains half of Cache's fortune stacks. Whenever Cache gains fortune, he restores 5% of his max health. Whenever he loses, he gains 8% of max overshield. So this is not only going to help us gain and lose fortune stacks, but it's also going to help us get health and overshield, allowing us to sustain a lot easier. So the skill points you want on your Windrider are +5 to Gloam to Glow, that shield icon right there. This is what is going to be dealing the most damage in this build. This is kind of like the center of this build. It's going to allow you to get overshield when you get damaged, and then whenever you lose a fortune stack, your gunshots are going to deal bonus damage equal to your overshield. So overshield's important, and then we're also going to be getting bonus damage 200% of our current overshield. That's at 10 out of 5. Then you want to get 1 point into Dusty Trail. This is going to allow us to slide to lose fortune stacks. So every stack you lose, you're going to get gun damage, reload, and fire rate, but we're only going to have 1 point into here, so that's not as important. But we just want to have a way to lose fortune stacks on demand in order to proc Gloam to Glow. So you want 1 point on your class item for this. If not, then you're going to have to put 1 point into this skill, so just keep that in mind. And then the third skill that you want on there is Dealer's Bluff. You want 1 point here, should be enough to restore action skill cooldown. If you have more in here, it's not the end of the world, but whenever Cache gains a stack of fortune, which we're going to be doing a lot of gaining fortune and losing fortune, as you can see from the Windrider class mod, so we're going to be getting action skill cooldown restored, which is going to allow us to throw more totems. And the reason why we're pairing all of this gun damage and bonus damage in the red tree with the green tree is that we can use a couple of the augments to our advantage. So we're using Heavenly Sevens here, which is going to give us and our allies overshield when it spawns. And so that overshield is also going to help that Gloam to Glow damage. Also going to give us fire rate, which is amazing as well and helps us with our gun damage. The second augment that we're using is Dirty Dozen. Now this sets our minimum fortune stack count based on how many active totems we have. So this allows us to gain fortune without having to really do anything but toss out our totems. So it's a good way to get fortune before going into a boss fight so that you can slide to lose it to then activate Gloam to Glow. So when you get into the boss fight or you need to generate fortune stacks, all you need to do is just toss out your dice, spawn in a totem, and you'll see on the bottom left we have 1 fortune, and now I toss out another one and we have 3, and now I toss out another one and we have 5. So we're continuing to get fortune stacks that way, super easy. And then now you can see we went into Windfall, which then consumed those fortune stacks. So it's an easy way to keep those fortune stacks up and going. But keep in mind that if you activate Windfall, you don't really have to worry about this that much because you're going to be consuming all of your fortune stacks in Windfall. And it's going to happen quite a bit. You can see we're getting Windfall not even by shooting or anything, just by activating our action skills. So that's going to consume, there's another Windfall, that's going to consume those stacks for you and going to give you damage for Gloam to Glow. But Dirty Dozen is a nice kind of backup augment to have if you're having trouble getting fortune stacks to lose them. However, if you find you don't need it, then you could pick up something like Three's Company, which is going to give you increased action skill duration, and that's going to help your totems do a little bit more damage. I would say the only augment that really is necessary here is Heavenly Sevens, because you want that overshield and fire rate. The Dirty Dozen augment trick is something that we've been using with the minion totem build with the whale. It's something that works pretty well here too. All right, so if you're fighting a boss, the gameplay loop is to drop down, toss out a few totems to generate fortune, pop your RepKit if you have any buffs, slide to consume if you don't proc Windfall. If you proc Windfall, you don't really need to slide to consume to proc Gloam to Glow, and then do your damage. And for mobbing, it's pretty much the same idea. It's a lot more relaxed. You can use a lot of different guns in this. You can use a lot of different ordnances. You can also use some rockets and things that I'll show you guys. Obviously for mobbing, Jacob's parts are going to help a lot with ad clear, and a Jacob enhancement with bounce pass and piercer are going to be great for getting critical hits and ricochets and just hitting a lot more stuff that's then going to get that bonus damage. Of course, you can push the damage even further on bosses with like Ripper enhancements and stuff, but Jacob's really is just fine, and I think everything else is a little bit overkill, at least for right now. But let's jump into the setup of the build. First up, we've got weapons. So ideal weapons for this build are going to be SMGs and shotguns with high pellet counts. Snipers are also good that have a lot going on, like Complex Root, where you have a lot of projectiles and things. So look for Complex Root. Is great on bosses. We've got Dark Beast, which is really good on crystals and vile enemies. This is what you want to pull out if you are going up against Bloom Reaper crystals, or you're doing a bunch of vile bounties. Dark Beast will just take it down so quickly. Another gun that's new to me, because I didn't play the Stone Demon until this Ellie DLC came out, is the Broken Wings, but I picked up this SMG and it's really fun to play. Sometimes it's a little rough with the aiming if it's like a little enemy and it's only one of them, but if it's a big group, then it's a lot easier to hit. But this is another fun one as well. Of course, Convergence, we use that on Harlow a lot in her group study build, and this is pretty similar, where we're having a ton of pellets going out and they're all getting bonus damage and buffed, and it's absolutely insane. As you can see here, it does a lot of damage. If we actually proc the other dummies, you'll see it goes pretty wild, and those little swirlies that you see above their heads, and you can kind of see the shots going into the enemy, that's actually the bone shards from the skill tree. If you find a great gun for this build, definitely leave it in the comments below. I want to try it. I haven't tried a bunch of the newest weapons lately, so let me know which ones you like. Like I said before, this build originally started as an Ordnance build for me, and it has turned into just an all-around gun build. So Ordnance also work really well for this build. Bottled Lightning, you saw in some of the intro boss kills in some of those clips. Bottled Lightning works really well. Hailspike is also amazing. If you find a Merv 2-shot of these Malawan rockets, then definitely give it a try. It's really fun with 3 out of 3 into high caliber for our firmware. And then these, not this Whiff Sniff, but I haven't gotten a new one. This is only level 58. Not the homing one, but there is fire rate, and then I think it's double barrel. I'm not sure. I will try to clarify in the comments if I can find my old ones, but those are really great as well. the new Heimdall heavy gun ordnance here that fires dull soldier heads that attack nearby enemies. This gun is kind of like having a little mini minion build, but the really cool part about this gun is that it holds, it snapshots the amp. So see how my shield is full. I have a watts for dinner on, of course, with amp, and when I shoot this out, you can see it uses my amp, and you can see he's kind of has that amp flare to him, I guess. All right, let me actually activate the dummy first, and then we're gonna pull this out. I gotta wait for my shield to recharge so that we can get trigger amp again. There, he's got amp and he's going out. And, you know, he does pretty good. He's really fun to have in mobbing situations if you're at a driller site or something. And of course, you can shoot out. I mean, you could shoot out multiple of these. We're never going to have to reload pretty much with the skill setup that we have going on. And you can see it can get kind of wild. They're just like a little firing squad over there. So this is really fun in mobbing situations. It's not as good in bossing, in certain bossing scenarios. Certain ones it's all right, but it just kind of depends. And then the shield, we want to look out for a watts for dinner because we get overshield boosters, and we also get 25% bonus shock damage, which gets applied to all of our gunshots. It also gets applied to that Heimdall, which you guys saw. For the perk on this, you're going to want to look for Siphon. Amp is good, but we're doing a lot of little shots. We're not really doing a big one unless you're using that Heimdall, like I showed you that example. But you want to look for Siphon on something. If you can find Siphon on a shield, or maybe Siphon and amp, maybe a lower amp on a watts for dinner or something like that, then that's going to really do you a lot better because you're going to be able to have a lot of overshield, and a lot of overshield means a lot of damage, right? The other good shield that you could pick up, I don't have a level 60 version yet, but I did have a super soldier with Siphon, which would be super great because you're going to get fire rate, movement speed, which is also going to feed into one of our skills, and you're going to be regenerating ammo with this one, so you may even be able to take a point out of the regen ammo from our skill tree. I haven't really tested this one fully yet because I need to go farm a level 60, but let me know down in the comments below if you have. But I think the fire rate, movement speed, the regen, the overshield, and getting Siphon on this, I think that would probably be my ideal. But let me know what you guys think. And then I already talked about the enhancement, getting Jacobs on here. Oh, and then last thing for your rep kit, you want to look for the usual suspects: war paint, triple bypass, kill spring. Kill spring's great for mobbing because you're going to get heals and stuff, but this build has a lot of lifesteal and overshield, so you really don't need that. I would rather get a war paint for the fire rate, the movement speed. This is all going to go into and support our skill tree. So you want to look for a war paint with like a damage boost here. Reload's not bad, but I would look for something like fire rate, movement speed, enrage maybe, or some kind of damage boost would be nice here. All right, next up, let's talk about the firmware. We're going to be doing 3 out of 3 into high caliber. This is going to just give us a nice 10% increase to our gun damage. This is in the enhancement bucket when it's multiplied, so it's nice to have. Cash has a lot of bonus damage, but not a lot of like base damage, I've noticed. So I feel like it's nice to just increase his base damage. Obviously, this is like base damage in the enhancement bucket, but anyways, 3 out of 3 high caliber. Mostly you want to use it if you're going to be using hail spike, because hail spike and 3 out of 3 high caliber have some crazy stuff going on with the bullet pierce, so I would say it's not as important with the other ordinances. And then we're going to go with 1 into God Killer just for the 10% damage to badasses and bosses and stuff, but you could also go into skill critical chance. That's going to help us enter Windfall because we have 1 point in that skill as well. And there's some other firmwares that you probably could swap around to that would give you about the same result. Moving over to the specializations, it's really going to depend on how many points you have, what level you are for your specializations, but ideally you're going to want to go 20 into survivor, 20 into brute, so that you can get down to riddle you this and the best events. Those are really great damage boosters. And then down to runner if you're not ADSing a lot and we're running around, which we have a lot of movement speed and we want to be sliding with this build, so a bullet train kind of goes along with that. That much, however, is 50 points, and I only have 54, and I've been playing since Cash came out on Thursday. So for your fourth specialization, you could go with CQC, which you'll be able to proc using this augment right here, Mighty 9, which will give you bonus incendiary melee damage to your guns and ordnance, which will then boost your fire rate, which is also really good for Cash. If you want more defense, you could go with Bullets Are Scared of Me, but it's really up to you. If you have some more points and you want to put them down here to full spectrum arsenal and use the ordnance damage a lot more, then that's a good option as well. All right, now let's get into the skill tree. I'll have a link down below to my build planner on Maxroll if you want to save it there. But in this build, the red tree has so much gun damage and bonus damage that it really boosts this build like crazy. So we're going to go through this first, and the green tree is going to be kind of more of a support tree with this build. It's going to be jinxing enemies, which provides a debuff, and it's also going to give us a lot of overshield and lifesteal and stuff. So we'll go over that second because the red tree is really where all our damage is coming from. So first up, we are going 5 out of 5 into Unleashed for that fire rate. We've got 5 out of 5 into Stand and Bleed for the critical chance. Now we want this critical chance not only to ricochet with our Jacob's guns, but we also want it to proc Windfall, which is going to be in our green tree. We've got 1 into Devil's Tines for the augment slot, and then we've got 3 out of 3 into Trick Shot. This is going to give us the ricochet chance, but also those bone shards. I know you guys remember when you saw those kind of white swirlies above the training bots. Those bone shards are going to be allowing us to do 30% more damage to the enemy, so super important. And then we're going to be putting 1 point into the bonus fire damage. The higher our fire rate, the greater the bonus. We have a lot of points into fire rate, things into fire rate. This is also just another way to proc that Gloam to Glow to get that bonus damage. It goes on a lot of different things, and this is kind of where I learned a little bit from Rator on which points to kind of put stuff in to just add more and more damage instead of kind of putting all your points into one skill. It's kind of better to have one of each into some of these, so I'll explain that to you guys. But we want 1 point at least into this bonus fire damage. We're also taking bonus fire damage in the green tree, so that's also going to go basically into this formula of converting some of it to kinetic, but also into this formula of turning some of it or adding some bonus damage to it. So further down in the red tree, we've got 5 out of 5 into Lawless, giving us increased kinetic damage, which is great because we also have 5 out of 5 into Nothing Beats Sled, which is going to turn 45% of our elemental damage into kinetic damage, and kinetic damage converted this way is increased by 75%. So you're going to want to use elemental weapons. Make sure you have elemental weapons because the kinetic weapons are not going to get converted, and so they're not going to get that boosted damage. Then in this tree, we're also going to take 1 point into Truck Full of Nitro. Originally I had 5 points in here because I wanted this to be more of an ordnance build, but the blue tree really has a lot more of the ordnance skills, so we'll probably be doing something different with that, and I decided to back the points out of there. But like I said, we put 1 point in here because our ordnances are going to get bonus kinetic damage, which is also going to feed back into War Wagon to give us ammo back into our gun. It's also going to get bonus damage, etc. You get the picture, right? So you want to find either a grenade that has like a lot of hits to it, like Waterfall, or you want to find an ordnance you like those little dudes that can just kind of fly around. They do bonus kinetic damage. Whenever they do that, we have a chance to refill ammo into our gun and restore action skill duration with diminishing returns. To be honest, I'm not sure if that works with the totems because I know duration sometimes is a little buggy with minions like that. I know that from playing Vex a lot, but either way, we're going to get that ammo refill chance. So the more chances that we have for that ammo refill, the more you're just never going to have to reload ever, whether it's Ordnance or it's your guns. So that also explains why we put 1 point into Pale Rider, because your action skills are also going to be doing bonus kinetic. So now your Ordnance is doing bonus kinetic, your action skills are doing bonus kinetic, everything's doing some form of kinetic, and your elemental weapons are doing some form of kinetic, and all of this is giving a chance to refill your mag. So you really are never going to have to reload. You probably don't even need the full 3 points into here. So you could maybe, you know, get away with putting some into there, but the 3 points just basically guarantees you're never going to have to reload no matter how fast you're firing, and our fire rate is pretty dang fast in this build. And then over to the right tree here, we've got 5 out of 5 in Unshaken. This is going to give us increased damage from all sources for every fortune stack we lose, which we know we're going to be gaining and losing a lot in this build. And so we're getting 5% per fortune stack lost, and max stacks 10. So that's 50% increased damage from all sources. And then we already went over Dusty Trail. This is how we lose fortune stacks easily. And then from Gloam to Glow, we put 5 points in here and then get 5 from our class mod. And this says a portion of all damage cash is dealt from enemies is converted to overshield whenever cash loses a fortune stack, which we can do so from sliding. Shots from his guns deal bonus damage equal to his overshield. We have a lot of overshield things going on in this build as well. All right, now let's move over to the green tree. This is the Claromancy tree. This is our action skill. We chose this over Crossfire or Sleight of Hand because you can throw your totems out and then you can go about your day doing your shooting your gun and everything. You don't have to be locked into a specific action skill like throwing cards or shooting in Crossfire. So we're using totems, and also the other thing is that the totems throwing our dice is also going to give us buffs and debuff the enemy. So we'll go into that as we go into the skill tree. It's also going to give us more overshield, more fire rate. It's just feeding into what we already need for this build. So the Claromancy action skill is a charge skill. You get 3 charges unless you pick certain augments that give you more, but Cash rolls the dice. You spawn a bone totem based on the resulting roll. And the default totems are the Tainted Draining Totem. So whenever you roll a dice that isn't a roll that corresponds with one of the augments or the base ones that you have, it's going to spawn a Draining Totem that deals kinetic lifesteal damage. The Mortar Totem is going to lob projectiles that deal fire grenade damage in a large radius. It does about like 150k and it shoots 3 times. So it's actually pretty decent when you've got it in a mobbing situation. And then Angry Totem gives you increased gun damage over time, which is amazing. You pretty much want that up whenever you're going against bosses. Every second it ticks and you get 10% gun damage per second for 16 seconds. So that's incredible. And then for our augments, I kind of explained this earlier in the video, but we're going to be taking Heavenly Sevens for the overshield and fire rate, and Dirty Dozen for the ability to increase our fortune stack count without really doing anything but spawning our totems. And then for the third one, it's kind of up to you, but I like taking the Mighty 9 because it will give you a free second wind as long as you have a bone totem out. This is helpful if you're going against harder enemies or something to be able to get up. It's also going to give your guns and ordnance bonus incendiary melee damage, and that's just extra damage, which is really nice. But if you're going against a lot of shields, you could pick the Chain Lightning. You're also going to get an additional charge with that, or you could go with the Windfall Duration and just get bonus action skill damage. This is great if you're in co-op and your allies are doing action skill builds, so it's kind of up to you for that third one. Now let's go into the skills. So up first, Charm Bracelet 5 out of 5 for the skill damage per bone totem. This is just a really great bonus for our action skill. And the other options really aren't that great, so that's kind of where we went with that. And then Red Mood Rising, this is the other way we're getting bonus fire damage, which of course a portion of the elemental damage is then being converted into kinetic damage. So this is going to give us bonus fire damage with guns and action skills while Windfall is active. And like you saw earlier, we're in Windfall a lot. Then we're going with Devil's Tines for that additional augment slot. We've also got Luckless 1 out of 1 here, where when we activate an action skill, enemies near us and our bone totems are going to become jinxed. Now jinx allows us to do 30% more to the enemy, and we also have the bone shards, which is 30% more. So we're debuffing the enemy a lot. They're taking a lot more damage from all sources, so this one is really important here. And then for the last 3 points, these are kind of flex, but I have really enjoyed putting them in before She Knows You're Dead, because we get increased movement speed for every active bone totem. We get increased skill damage based on how quickly we're moving, and we get a lot of movement speed whether we're using Super Soldier, we're using War Paint, we're using something that's giving us movement speed. And this is also going to help us get into kind of the momentum of sliding and moving around. So I've really liked having 3 points into here for that movement speed. And then for our last 3 points, we're putting 1 into Can't Stop Winning, which is allowing us to enter Windfall when we critically hit. So this gives us a lot of chance because we have really fast firing weapons that are hitting a lot, and we have those Jacob weapons, and we have high crit chance, and we are having so many opportunities to enter Windfall. Then second, we have Turn of Fate 1 into here, which is going to allow us to get overshield steal. It gives us lifesteal, and then when our health is full, we get overshield. We know we need that overshield for Gloom to Glow. And then last up, we have 1 into Accursed Bones, which is also going to allow our action skill to jinx enemies. All right, guys, that's it for the build. This is truly one of the most insane cash builds that I've seen so far, and it's probably one of the most insane, minus like Vex bleed stuff, which I know cash can do that now too. I don't know how that got past QA, but it's probably more insane than Harlow Group Study, in my opinion. It's a really, really fun build to play, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know down in the comments if you are trying it out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.